Yes, he is in.
Who's that chirping out there? Is it my little lark?
It
Is it that squirrel rummaging about again?
is. Yes.
When did my squirrel get home?
Just this minute. If you come out, Torvald, I'll show you everything I bought.
Do not disturb. Did you say bought? Oh, what, all those things? Has my little problem been out frittering away all my money?
Oh, Torvald, can't we let ourselves go a little? This is the first Christmas we haven't had the pension scrape.
That doesn't mean you can go throwing money around.
Yes, but surely we can throw a little bit around. Just a teeny weeny bit. Soon enough you'll be getting an enormous salary and we'll have piles and piles of money.
Yes, but that's not until the new year, and then I'll get paid until the end of the first quarter.
Well then, we'll just have to borrow some.
Nora, what a scatterbrain you are. Suppose I were to borrow 1,000 kroner today, and you were frittered away over Christmas. Then suppose on New Year's Eve a tile would come off the roof and land on my head and kill me.
You mustn't say such horrible things like that.
Well, suppose something like that happened. Then where would you be?
If something as terrible as that did happen, it wouldn't matter whether I had any debts to settle.
What about the people I borrowed from?
Who cares about them? They're strangers.
Nora, that's just typical of a woman. No, seriously, Nora, you know what I think about that sort of thing? Neither a borrower nor a lender be. There's no freedom in a home built on borrowing and debt. It becomes ugly. So far, we've put up with everything, bravely. Both of us, and there's only a short time left. So we're not going to give up now.
All right, Torvald. Just as you like.
Oh, now that can't be my little lark with her wings all drooping, can it? Nora, what's this then, eh?
Money?
That's right. I know you need all sorts of things around the house at Christmas.
Thank you, Torvald. What's it, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Thank you, Torvald. This will go a long way.
I should certainly hope so.
It will. Now sit down, let me show you everything I bought. Don't worry, everything was cheap. All right. You're going to love this. First, the presents for the children. I got a little belt for a bar. And a telescope for him as well. Won't he love that? And a paddle ball as well. And I have a teddy bear here for Emmy. It's a very ordinary little thing, but she always ends up tearing all of her toys up, doesn't she? Maybe we should name him Albert. And of course, I have some material and handkerchiefs for the servants. I should have gotten something better for poor old Amerigo.
And what's in that parcel?
No, Torvald, you mustn't look at that, not until this evening.
Ah, I see. Now tell me, what does little Moneybags want for herself?
Me? Oh no, Torvald, I don't want anything.
Of course you do. Go on. Think of something you'd really like, something sensible.
No, really, I don't want anything. Except Torvald.
Yeah.
Well, if you really wanted to get me something, you could always, you could.
Come on, then, out with
You could
it.
give me money, Torvald. No more than what you thought you could afford, and then I could buy myself something later.
But Nora,
Oh dear Torvald, please do. Then we could wrap the money in lovely gold paper and hang it on the tree. That would be so much fun, wouldn't
what
it?
do I call those little birds who squander all their money away?
Spendthrifts, I know. But if we do what I suggest, then I'll have time to really think about what I need. Doesn't that sound reasonable?
Of course, it sounds reasonable. I mean, if you could really hold on to the money I gave you, really buy yourself something with it. But it'll just go on to housekeeping and all sorts of useless things, and I'll have to fork out some more. You can't deny it, Nora, darling. Spendthrifts are very sweet. They can get to an awful lot of money. It's incredible how expensive it can be to keep little spendthrifts.
That's not fair. How can you say that? I save as much as I can.
Of course you do. As much as you can. But as much as you can comes to nothing.
Larks and squirrels always have lots and lots of expenses, Torvald. You can't imagine.
You're a funny little thing, just like your father. Always on the lookout for all the money you can get your hands on, but as soon as you do get a hold of some, it always seems to slip away through your fingers, and then you can never remember what you've done with it. I shall just have to accept you as you are, Nora. It's in the blood, yes. Hereditary.
I wish I'd inherited more of my father's
And
qualities.
I wouldn't wish you any different. You're my sweet little Skylark. Except it seems to me you're looking a bit, how shall I put it, a bit suspicious today.
Am I?
Yes, you are. Look me straight in the eye.
Yes.
Now, Miss Sweet Tooth, Are you quite sure you didn't get up to anything in town today?
No, whatever makes you think that.
Well, then the sweet tooth used to be forever popping around to perfection.
No, really, Torvald, I promise you.
Not even to nibble a little something with jam in it.
No, no.
Not even a macaroon or two.
Torvald, I promise you.
It's all right, just my little joke.
I wouldn't dream of doing anything you disapproved of.
Oh no, I know that. Anyways, you promised, didn't you? My dear Nora, you keep your Christmas secrets to yourself. They shall all be revealed this evening when the Christmas trees lit up, won't they?
Remember to invite Dr. Ray.
Oh no, it's not necessary. I'm sure he'll come to dinner of his own accord. Anyway, you can always talk to him when he comes around this morning. I have ordered some very good wine. You can't imagine how much I'm looking forward to this evening, Nora.
I am too. You want the children to enjoy themselves?
It's marvelous, you know, when it has a really solid, secure position. And such a comfortable income. It's a delightful thought, isn't it?
It's wonderful.
Do you remember last Christmas? How you shut yourself up till long after midnight every evening for 3 whole weeks making flowers for the Christmas tree and all sorts of wonders you're going to amaze us with. I have never been so bored in my life.
I wasn't at all bored.
Didn't come to much though, did it, Nora?
You can't tease me about that. It isn't my fault the cat got in and ripped everything to pieces.
No, poor Nora, of course it wasn't. You wanted to give us all a bit of pleasure, and you did your best, and that's what counts. All the same, it's a good thing the lean times are over.
Wonderful.
Now I don't have to sit here on my own, dying of boredom. You don't have to wear out your lovely eyes. Your delicate little hands.
No, I don't do it. Now, I'll tell you what I think we should do. As soon as Christmas is over, that's the bell, someone come to call.
I'm not at home, don't forget.
Madam, there's a lady here to see you. No one I know.
Sure, right?
The doctor's here as well.
Has he gone into the study?
Yes, he went around back.
Good morning, Nora.
You don't recognize me, do you?
No, I'm afraid I don't. Christine. Christine, is that good? Yes, it is. Don't speak to me for not recognizing you. How could I change so much, Christine?
I must have in 10 years. That's a long time.
And not long. Have you moved into town as well? Longer than the Munchie must be very brave.
I arrived this morning by boat.
Oh, so you must be coming to visit us for Christmas. How wonderful. Well, I'll have a much lovelier Christmas now that you're here. Oh, you must be freezing. Come sit by the fire. I'll take your things. Take the armchair. There you are. Now you look just as I remember you. It was only when I first saw you that well, different, Christine. A bit thinner and paler.
An older Nora, much, much older.
Not that much older. Only a teeny wee bit. Oh, you must forgive me for prattling on so.
What do you mean?
Well, you're a widow now, aren't you, Christine?
Yes, I have been for 3 years.
Yes, I know. I read about it in the paper. You must believe me. I kept meaning to write to you, but I was always putting it off and having to do something else.
I understand.
No, it's not. It's terrible of me, Christine. What you must have gone through, you poor thing. Did he leave you anything to live on?
No,
No children?
no,
Nothing at all?
not even grief. Not even a lingering regret.
But how can that be, Christine?
That's the way things are sometimes, Nora.
Poor dear. You know, I've got 2 lovely children now. I can't show them to you since they're outside playing with their nanny, but oh, look at me, just going on and on about myself. Do tell me more about yourself.
No, it's better if you do the talking.
No, today I just want to focus on you. Except, there is one thing. Have you heard about our great stroke of luck?
No, what's that?
Just think. My husband's been made manager of the Joint Stock Bank.
Your husband. Isn't that marvelous?
It is, it really is. You see, being a lawyer is such an insecure life, especially if you don't want to get involved in anything dishonest or underhand, which of course Torvald didn't. So you can imagine how pleased we are. He'll be starting off at the new bank within the new year, and we earning quite a large salary and a rather large commission, so we'll be able to live quite differently, just as we like. I feel so bright and happy, Christine. Isn't it wonderful to know that you have lots and lots of money and you don't have to worry about anything in the world?
It must be lovely to not have to worry about the essentials.
Oh no, not just enough of the essentials, but piles and piles of money.
Nora, you still haven't learned to be sensible, have you? Even when we were at school, you always liked spending money.
Yes, that's what Torvald always says, I'm afraid. But Nora isn't who she besides, I really haven't had a chance to spend it all. We've both had to work.
But you as well?
Yes, well, I did a bit of needlework and embroidery, crochet, that type of thing. I suppose you know that Torvald left the civil service when we got married. There was no prospect of promotion within his department, but he really needed a higher salary. Well, the first year he was there, he overworked and pushed himself far too hard. He was slaving away day and night, and one day he fell dangerously ill. So the doctors came to me and told me the only thing that could save him was a rescue in the south.
Yes, you were in Italy a whole year, weren't you?
Yes, that's right. It was a rather difficult trip to go on, though, you see. My father was on the brink of death at the time, and of course, Ivar had just been born, but obviously we had to go. Oh, it was a lovely trip. Quite expensive, though.
I can't imagine it was.
4,800 kroner. That's a lot, isn't it?
It is. You're lucky to have had that when you needed it.
I should explain, you got it from my father.
Oh. It was around then that he died, wasn't it?
Yes, I'm afraid so. And the awful thing was, I wasn't able to go nurse him. Poor old father. He's so good and kind. His death has been the worst thing that's happened since I've been married.
I know how fond of him you were. So, you went to Italy.
Yes, the doctors told us to leave right away, so we left that next month.
And was your husband quite better when you got back?
Fit as a fiddle.
But then why the doctor?
What?
I thought I heard the maid say the gentleman who arrived at the same time I did was a doctor.
Oh, yes, that's Dr. Ink, but no, he's not here professionally. He's just a close friend of ours. No, everyone here is fit and well. Children, Torvald and I. Oh, Christine, isn't it wonderful to be alive and happy? Oh, I'm so sorry. I just keep talking on and on about myself, don't I? Tell me, is it true you didn't love your husband? Why did you marry him?
My mother was still alive then. She was bedridden and helpless. And then I had 2 younger brothers to look after, so I didn't think it would be right to refuse his offer.
No, I can understand that. Was he quite rich then?
He was fairly well off, yes. But his business was rather precarious, Nora. And when he died, the whole thing collapsed, and then there was nothing left.
Christine, then what?
And then I just had to struggle through. First by opening a little shop and then a school, and then whatever else I could think of. These past 3 years have felt like one long, non-stop workday. But it's over now, Nora. My mother doesn't need me anymore. Nor do the boys. They've gone into business. They can look after themselves.
Well, you must feel very relieved now.
No. Just hopelessly futile. No one to live for anymore. That's why I couldn't stand it stuck away in that out-of-the-way hole. It must be easier to find something here to occupy myself with, something I could take an interest in. If only I could be lucky enough to find something permanent, some kind of office job.
That sounds so terribly tiring, Christine. Besides, what you need most is a few days at some spa.
I don't have a father to pay my expenses, Nora.
Oh, Christine, please don't be angry with
But don't
me.
be angry with me either. That's the worst thing about the kind of situation I'm in, is it fills you with bitterness. You have no one to work for, and yet you have to put your whole energy into it. You have to live, and so you get selfish. When you were telling me about your piece of good luck earlier, I was more pleased for my sake than for yours, if you can believe it.
Why? Oh, I see. You mean Torvald could do something for you?
I was hoping that, yes.
Well, I'm sure he could. I'd have to think of something to put him in a good mood, but I'd really love to help you.
That's very good of you, Nora. Especially considering you know so little of the trials and tribulations of life.
I know so little.
Well, except for a bit of needlework, of course. You're a child, Nora.
You shouldn't be so patronizing.
Oh, shouldn't I?
Just like everyone else. No one thinks I'm capable of doing anything really serious.
No.
But I've had any real struggles in this hard world.
Nora, you've just told me of all your difficulties.
That was nothing. I haven't told you about the really important thing.
What really important thing? What do you mean?
You look down on me, Christine, but you shouldn't. I know you're proud of what you did for your mother.
I'm sure I don't look down on anyone. But it's true, it does make me proud and happy to think I was able to make my mother's final years relatively comfortable.
And I know you're proud of what you did for your brothers.
I think I have a right to be.
Well, there's something I can be proud and happy about as well. Although you must keep your voice down. Torvald's not to know about this, nor must anyone, no one except you, of course.
Know about what?
There's something I can be proud and happy about. I saved Torvald's life.
Saved his life. How?
Well, I told you about our trip to Italy.
Yes, your father gave you the money.
that's what everyone else thinks, and so does Torvald,
But what?
Father didn't give us a penny. I got hold of the money myself.
But you did.
4,800 kroner. What do you think of that?
Yes, but how, Nora? Did you win in the lottery?
In the lottery? Oh, there wouldn't have been anything very clever about that now, would there?
Well, and where on earth did you get it from? You couldn't possibly have borrowed it.
I couldn't, and why not?
Well, wives aren't allowed to borrow money without their husband's consent.
Oh, when a wife's got a bit of business sense and knows how to use her intelligence.
Nora, I don't understand this at all.
How could you? Besides, you said I borrowed the money. You never know, I might have received it from some rich admirer when you're as attractive as that.
Don't be so silly.
You must be bursting with curiosity, Christine.
Nora, are you sure you haven't done something rash?
Is it rash to save your husband's life?
I think it is rash if you do it without his
But
knowledge.
that was the whole point, to do it without him finding out. We never intended for Torvald to find out how dangerously ill he was. One day, the doctors came to me, told me the only thing that could save him was a rest room in the south. Don't you think I didn't try to wheedle him into it? I cried, I begged, I told him he should think of my condition. I told him how lovely it would be for me to go along like all the other young brides. Well, finally I suggested we might borrow the money. Of course, he grew very angry at that. He told me I was being frivolous. And it was his duty as a husband not to give away to all my whims and impulses, I think they call them. All right, I thought. But you've still got to be saved. And I figured out a way to do it.
But didn't your husband find out from your father that the money hadn't come from him?
No. It's about that time my father had died, and I couldn't bear to bring myself to tell him why I needed his signature beforehand.
So you've never told your husband since?
What preposterous thought. No, it would completely imbalance our entire relationship.
Will you never tell him?
Maybe one day, when I stop being so free. Don't laugh. What I mean is, when Torvald stopped being so fond of me, then it might be good to have something up my sleeve. That can never happen. Well, what do you think of my great secret, Christine? Whenever Torvald bought me new clothes, I should say, whenever Torvald gave me money for new clothes, I never spent more than half of it. And of course, I always bought what was cheapest and simplest. Which is quite a shame, you know, because it sure is nice to wear lovely clothes, isn't it?
It must be.
And of course, I got a whole lot of other work done last winter. I did a whole lot of copying work. And in a way, it was quite fun sitting up there like that, working, earning all that money. It almost felt like being a man.
Nora, how much have you been able to pay off?
Well, these financial dealings are rather complicated, you see, but from what I know, I've managed to scrape everything together. Would you like tea? Helene? So, tell me more about your husband.
I don't know what there is to tell.
Well, maybe we shouldn't talk about the husband then. Children?
You can tell me about yours.
Well, you know Ivar. He is 8 years old.
There's someone at the door. I should go.
Oh, no. I expected someone for Torvald.
Excuse me, madam. There's a gentleman here to see Mr. Helmer, but the doctor's still with him, so I wasn't sure.
Excuse me, Mrs. Helmer.
What do you want?
I have a position at the Joint Stock Bank, and I understand that your husband is to be our new manager.
So you are.
Just here on dull business, that's all, Mrs. Helmer.
Right. Then would you be so good as to use the business entrance?
Nora, who is that?
A lawyer, Mr. Krogstad.
So it was him.
You knew him.
I used to, years ago. He worked at a solicitor's office in our town.
Oh.
He's changed.
He's had a rather unhappy marriage, I'm afraid.
And he's a widower now, isn't he?
Yes, with several children. That's better. It's caught now.
Apparently he's dabbled in all sorts of different businesses.
Really, I wouldn't know. Oh, let's not talk about business. It's so boring.
Oh, no, I'd only be in your way. I'd rather go have a chat with your wife. Oh. sorry. I think I seem to be in the way in here as well.
No, not at all. Dr. Rank, this is Mrs. Lind.
Oh, Mrs. Lynn. Well, it's a name I've often heard repeated in this house. I think I passed you on the stairs on my way in.
Yes, stairs take me a while. I find them an effort.
Have you had some sort of internal trouble?
No, it's just overwork, really.
Are you sure? So you've come up to town to go to all those restful parties, have you?
I've come to look for a job.
Oh, yes. Well, that's an infallible cure for overwork.
One has to live, Doctor.
Yes, that does seem to be the general
Oh,
opinion.
Dr. Rank, you really want to live just as much as anyone.
Yes, you're right. No matter how miserable I am, I want the pain to drag on as long as possible. All my patients, I was saying. In fact, so are the morally ill. Right now, one of those moral invalids is in there talking to Helmer.
Oh, who's that?
Oh, no one you would know. His name's Krogstad. He's a lawyer. He's rotten to the core. But even he began by saying, as if he was making some breathtaking revelation, that he had to live.
Well, what does he want to do with Torvald?
No idea. Something about the joint stock bank, I believe.
I didn't know Mr. Krogstad had anything to do with the bank.
Yes, he has some minor position there. I don't know if this happens where you're from, but here we have people who spend all their time panting around, searching out moral derelicts, and employing them in profitable positions. Meanwhile, healthy, honest people are left out in the cold.
I suppose it is the sick who most need looking after.
Yes, that's just what I mean. That's the sort of attitude that turns society into a hospital. Oh, what are you laughing at? Do you have any idea what society is?
Oh no, I couldn't care less about your boring old society, Dr. Rank. I was laughing about something else entirely. Tell me, do many people at the bank depend on Torvald?
I don't see what's so funny about that.
Oh, nothing. I just find it amusing to think that Torvald has so much influence. Anyway, Dr. Rank, would you like a little macaroon?
Oh, macaroons, is it? Thought they were illegal in this house.
Lucy B, they're given to me by Christine.
Not me. I didn't.
Don't worry, you weren't to know that Torvald had outlawed them. The thing is, you see, he thinks he'll rot my teeth. But surely one or two of them couldn't hurt. You know, I feel incredibly happy. There's just one thing I really long to do.
And what's that?
It's just something I long to say in front of Torvald.
What's stopping you?
Well, I can't. It's actually quite horrible. Horrible.
Well, perhaps it wouldn't be very advisable to say then, but you could tell us what it is you really long to say in front of Helmer.
All right. What I really long to say is hell and damnation.
You are mad. Oh, here he comes. Say it.
Did you get rid of him, Torvald?
Yes, he's gone.
Then shall I introduce you? This is Christine.
Christine, I'm sorry, I don't think I...
Mrs. Lynn, dear Mrs. Christine
Oh,
Lynn.
yes. You must be a school friend of my wife.
Yes, Nora and I knew each other a long time ago.
Yes, and she's come all this way to talk to you.
To me, I
That's
don't
not really
understand.
See, Christine is terribly clever at office work, and what she really longs to do is work for someone experienced so she can learn from them.
Sounds very sensible, Mrs. Lynn.
And when she heard that you'd been made bank manager, someone sent her a telegram. She came all this way. Don't you think you could do something for her, Torvald, for my sake?
It's not impossible. I assume you're a widow, Mrs. Lynn.
Yes,
You've had some business experience.
quite a lot, yes.
Then it's very likely I'll be able to find you a place.
There you are, you see?
You timed your arrival very well, Mrs. Lynn.
How can I ever thank you?
Think nothing of it. Well, then you must excuse me now.
Oh, hold on a minute. I'll come with you.
Don't be long, dear.
I shan't be more than an hour.
Where are you leaving as well, Christine?
Yes, I should go look for a room.
Perhaps you'd like to walk down with us.
I'm in a bit of a bind, so I wish we had a room. I wouldn't dream of it. Thank you for everything.
And of course, you must come back for dinner this evening. You as well, Dr. Rank.
I'm able.
What was that?
I said if I'm able.
You're able. You'll be just fine as long as you wrap up for it.
Oh, now, Mrs. Lynn, this work becomes unbearable for anyone who isn't a mother.
Goodbye. Goodbye, dear.
Well, we had a fine time out there.
Oh.
The leader gave me a ride on his sled.
Oh, he did what a good boy.
And he threw snowballs.
What snowballs! I wish we could have.
Hi, Marie, you are freezing. There's some hot chocolate for you in the nursery.
Thank you, Miss Hart. Thank you. Oh, are these for the children?
Yes.
Shall I take might as well get these ones?
Excuse me, Mrs. Helmer.
What is it? What do you want?
I'm sorry. The door was open. Someone must have forgotten to shut it.
My husband is out, Mr. Krogstad.
I know.
Then what is it you want?
A word with you.
A word with me? You want a word with me?
Yes.
Well, I don't understand what it could be about. It's not the first of the month yet.
Yes, I know it's Christmas Eve, and if you want it to be a happy Christmas, that's up to you.
I don't understand what it could possibly be about. There's no way I could get hold of it today.
Let's not worry about all of that just now. Let's deal with something else. Have you got a moment?
Yes, of course, except.
Good. I was sitting in the corner of Olson's restaurant just now, and I couldn't help but notice your husband
Yes?
with a lady.
What about it?
Might I be so bold as to ask whether that lady was a certain Mrs. Lynn?
Yes, it was.
She just arrived in town.
Yes, today.
Is she a friend of yours?
Yes, but I really don't see how.
I used to know her as well.
Yes.
She told you all about that, didn't she? I figured as much. Mrs. Helmer, I need a straight answer on this. Has Mrs. Lynn been offered a post at the Joint Stock Bank?
Mr. Croxton, I really don't know how you can have the face to stand here and interrogate me like this. You are one of my husband's employees, after all. However, since you asked, I might as well tell you. Yes, Mrs. Lynn was offered a job at bank for my recommendation. Now you know.
So I guessed right.
You know, I do have a bit of influence. Just because I'm a woman, it doesn't mean I don't. Well, you see, when one finds oneself in a subordinate position, one really must be careful not to offend anyone with.
Influence.
Exactly.
Mrs. Helmer, I wonder if you'd be so kind as to use some of that influence on my behalf.
What do you mean?
Would you be so kind as to make sure that I keep my little subordinate position at the bank?
I don't understand. Why should anyone take it from you?
There's no need to pretend that you don't know anything about it. I realize it can't be very pleasant for your friend to be pushed in together with me, and now I know who's responsible for hounding me out.
I assure you I
Yes, there's no need for any of that. There's still time to stop it, and I advise that you use your influence to do something about it.
But Mr. Cross said I've got no influence.
But you've just said that.
But that was different. You can't seem to think I have more influence than my husband.
Oh, I know your husband. We went to business school together. He's a bank manager now, but I don't think you'll find him any more resolute than any other husband.
Mr. Crosshat, if you're going to insult my husband, I shall have to ask you to leave.
A woman of spirit.
I'm not afraid of you anymore. By the time the new year rolls around, all this will be behind me.
Listen to me, Mrs. Helmer. I'm prepared to fight for my little job at the bank as if I were fighting for my life.
Apparently.
It's not about the salary, you know. That's really the last thing I'm worried about. It's something else. I'll tell you about it. I assume that you know a few years ago I made a mistake.
I did hear something about it, yes.
I was never brought to trial for it. But from then on, for me, all paths were blocked. And you know what business I went into then. But I've got to put all of that behind me. My sons are growing up, and I've got to win back as much public respectability as I can for their sake. For me, this little job at the bank was the first rung on that ladder. But now your husband wants to kick me off again. Into the mud.
Mr. Crosshat, it really isn't in my power to help you.
You only say that because you don't want to help me. But I have the means to force you.
You're not going to tell my husband that I owe you money.
Suppose that I do.
That would be an incredibly wicked thing to do. That secret is my pride and my happiness. However, I'm sure if Torvald does find without it, we of course pay whatever's outstanding at once. And we need to have nothing more to do with you.
Mrs. Helmer, you either have a very poor memory or you have no clear idea as to anything into the world of business. It's clear that I'm going to have to give you a course of basic instruction.
What do you mean?
When your husband became ill, you came to me to borrow 4,800 kroner.
You were the only one I knew of.
I promised to raise you the funds.
What you did?
I promised to raise you the funds on certain conditions. But you were so preoccupied with your husband's illness And so anxious to raise the funds for your journey, I believe that you may have overlooked some key details, which is why I do not think it would be inappropriate to review them with you now. I agreed to raise you the funds in exchange for an IOU, which I drew up.
Yes, and which I signed.
Yes, but the date was left blank, for I'd added a clause at the bottom, which said that your father would have to sign on as a guarantor for the loan. It required a signature.
Yes, he did sign it.
Yes. And I gave it to you to post to your father right away, didn't I?
Yes, he did.
And you must have done just that, because you brought it back to me 5 or 6 days later, signed and dated, whereupon I handed over the funds.
Well, I've kept my payments regular, haven't I?
More or less. But to get back to what we were discussing, that must have been a very difficult time for you, was it not, Mrs. Hall?
My father was dying, Mr. Cox said.
And he did die soon afterwards.
Yes.
Mrs. Helmer, do you remember the day that your father died? The date.
Father died on the 29th of September.
That's right. I made inquiries. And that, Mrs. Helmer, is where we come to the unusual portion of this case, which I must say, I am at a loss of words to explain.
The usual portion I don't understand.
The unusual portion of this case is that your father signed this contract 3 days after he died.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Your father died on September the 29th. And look here, he's dated his signature on October the 2nd. It's a little strange, is it not, Mrs. Helmer? Not so easy to explain. It also struck me that the words October the 2nd were written in a handwriting very different from your father's, one that I think I recognize. Now perhaps your father forgot to date his signature, and someone came along later and noticed the discrepancy and added a date at random, not knowing that your father's dead. Now, there would be no harm in this. What's vitally important is the signature itself. It is genuine, is it not, Mrs. Helmer? Your father really did sign this document.
No, he didn't. I did.
Mrs. Helmer, you do realize that that's a very dangerous confession.
Why? You'll have your money soon enough.
Allow me to ask you a question. Why didn't you just send this to your father?
You couldn't. My father was on the brink of death at the time, and I couldn't bear to tell him why I needed his signature in the first place.
You'd have done better to cancel your
I
trip.
could not cancel that trip and save my husband's life.
But you were cheating me, or did that not occur
I
to
didn't
you?
care about you. In fact, I hated you for making all those ruthless conditions when you knew how ill my husband was.
Mrs. Helmer, you have no clear idea what it is that you're guilty of. I can assure you that what I did was no more and no worse, and it completely ruined my position in society.
What you did? You mean to tell me you would have done anything to save your wife's life?
The law is not interested in motives.
And the law is useless.
Useless or not, if I were to bring this before a court, you would be condemned by the law.
I don't believe it. You mean a wife isn't allowed to save her husband's life, or a daughter isn't allowed to save her old dying father through anxiety? I
You,
won't accept.
you do what you like, Mrs. Helmer. Know this. If I'm thrown out again, you're coming with me. Goodbye, Mrs. Helmer.
There it is. Catastrophe. Helene, bring in the decorations, would you?
Where shall I put them, madam?
Just over here, please.
Is there anything else you need brought in?
Take this, would you? Yes. Oh, what lovely little ornaments. Oh, the trees come so lovely.
been here.
Oh, here, no.
That's funny, I just saw Krogstad leaving the house.
Oh, yes, well, Krogstad was here for a minute.
Nora, he was here begging you to put in a word for him, wasn't he? You can tell just by looking at you.
Yes.
And you were going to pretend it was his idea. You weren't going to tell me he had been here. Was that his suggestion as well?
Yes, Revolta.
Nora, really, how could you agree to something like that? How could you talk to that sort of man? Let alone make promises to him and then lie to me on top of everything.
Why do you?
Well, you said no one had been here, didn't you? My little songbird must never do that again. Now then, we'll speak no more about it. Isn't it warm and cozy here?
Torvald,
Yes.
I'm really looking forward to the Stenborg's fancy dress ball the day after tomorrow.
I cannot wait to see what you can surprise me with this time.
So silly.
What?
Nothing I do seems good enough. Everything seems so stupid and pointless.
So you found that out, have you, Nora?
Are you very busy, Torvald?
Well,
What are those papers?
they're to do with the bank. I have persuaded the outgoing manager to give me the authority to make the necessary staff and administration changes. I must work on that during this Christmas week. I want it all sorted out by the new year.
That's like poor Krogstad.
Hmm.
You know, if you weren't so busy, Torvald, I would have asked you for an enormous favor.
What might that be? Tell me.
Well, you're the best dressed out of anyone I know. Don't you think you could take charge of me and tell me what I should be, what's the costume I should wear for the ball?
What a stubborn girl like you appealing for a savior.
Oh yes, but I can't do anything without your help.
All right, I'll think about it. See what we can come up with.
The tree's gonna look so lovely, isn't it? Torvald, is it really so bad whatever it is Krogstad did wrong?
Forgery. Have you any idea how serious that is?
Don't you think it's possible he was forced into it by necessity?
Yes, or else he did it without thinking like so many people. I'm not so heartless as to condemn a man irrevocably because of one isolated incident.
No, you're not.
A man can always regain his moral stature if he openly confesses his crime and accepts his punishment.
Punishment?
But that wasn't Krogstad's method. No, he got out of it with trickery and deceit. And that's why I say he's a moral cripple. Think of the way a man with a guilty conscience has to live. Lies, hypocrisy, pretense. Even those closest to him, even his own wife and children can never see behind his mask. And the worst thing of all is what happens to the children.
Why?
Because an atmosphere of lies can infect and contaminate the whole life of the home. Every breath that children take in a house like that is filled with disgusting germs.
Are you sure about that?
My dear, as a lawyer, I've had more than enough experience of that sort of thing. Nearly all young criminals have had dishonest mothers.
Why do you say mothers?
Because it usually is the mother's responsibility, although, of course, the father can have the same effect. Any lawyer knows that. But Krogstad has been at home all these years, poisoning his own children with lies and deceit. And that's why he's morally degenerate. Anyway, it would be quite impossible for me to work with him, I can tell you. People like that literally make me feel physically ill.
Oh, it's so warm in here. I've got so much to do.
Yes, and I have to look through some of these papers before lunch. We'll have to think about what your costume might be. I might even find something to wrap up in gold paper and hang on the Christmas tree. My sweet little Skylar.
It can't be true. Oh gosh, it can never be true.
The children want to know if they can come in and see Mummy.
Oh no, keep them with you, Anne-Marie.
Very good, madam.
Brought to my children. Where's my home? Can't be true. It can never be true.